Hey there, everybody. I'm First Alert Meteorologist Rodney Harris. Hope you were enjoying your St. Patrick's Day. Very cold start to your day, and honestly, it's going to stay chilly all day today, but it won't be as bad this afternoon as what we saw this morning when temperatures were in the upper 20s. So I brought this live camera out over Midtown Atlanta to show you one. It's still partly cloudy, and there was a wind gust. That wind gust has gone away, which is good. There's normally a number there, but the reason why that's there is because throughout the course of the afternoon, winds may gust up to like 25 miles per hour at times. So a little breezy, but not as bad as yesterday. So if you were headed out for St. Patrick's Day, forecast will basically be chilly, but it will stay dry. And even though you're seeing some clouds out there right now, those clouds are going to move out after lunch, so we should see plenty of sunshine. Speaking of lunch, 38 degrees. It will be chilly at lunchtime today in Atlanta, 45 at 3 o'clock as you're picking the kids up from school. And by 6 p.m., if you're headed out after work to celebrate on St. Patrick's Day, 46 degrees. So I do recommend at least a jacket out there because it will be chilly for your St. Patrick's Day, but thankfully it will stay dry, not only for today, but for really the rest of the week and going into the weekend. So I want to talk about our freeze warning because we had a freeze warning this morning that expired at 10 a.m., so we are no longer under a first alert. However, we're back under a new freeze warning tonight going into Wednesday morning, and we talked about this on Atlanta News First earlier today, but just so you know, these freeze warnings aren't really for us. They're for our plants and our vegetation. So if you had warm weather vegetation that had grown over the past couple of weeks with those warmer temperatures, it can't take a freeze. So if you have any plants out there that can't take a freeze, the reason why the warning was issued this morning was to give you advance notice to try to get those indoors if you could. And basically the same story tonight going into tomorrow morning, simply because those temperatures will drop back to below freezing again. So let's walk you through that hour by hour temperature forecast. At lunchtime, begin around 38 in Atlanta. Most of us will be in the 30s. If you're on the south side of town, maybe the low 40s in Thomaston, LaGrange, and Edenton. Again, this is at lunchtime today with plenty of sunshine. Picking up the kids from school, 45 degrees. So the normal is 66, so we are still well below average for your afternoon high. 39 in the mountains, so staying in the 30s there. And then if you were headed out this evening, we're going to stay in the 40s. And here's when we drop below freezing again. Freezing is 32 and colder, and we are back to around freezing, if not colder, 7, 8 o'clock on Wednesday morning, which is why a new freeze warning is in effect tonight through Wednesday, so be careful with those plants. Outside of freezing temperatures, though, your rest of your 7-day forecast is looking spectacular. It's going to stay dry through the weekend for sure. The first day of spring is Friday, and our temperatures will really respond. So starting tomorrow, 55 degrees. I will note that tomorrow we'll have a little system that's going to pass us by to the north, so you're going to notice more clouds out there tomorrow compared to today. However, it will stay dry. By Thursday, dry in 67. By Friday, first day of spring, dry 76. By Saturday, 79 and dry. And on Sunday, 82 degrees. So I know it's cold right now, and it will be cold in the morning, but we do have some warmer afternoons coming through the upcoming weekend. And we did add a slight chance of a shower or two to your forecast for next Monday. Looks like that'll be our next best chance for rain, and even then, it's a very low-end risk at this particular point. The one other thing I wanted to talk about was freezing temperatures. Since we saw a freeze this morning, and we'll see another freeze on Wednesday morning, wanted to kind of highlight when we typically see our last freezes in the city of Atlanta. Here we are today on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. The next freeze will be tomorrow morning, March 18th. Now, the last freeze in Atlanta typically happens on March the 21st. That would be this upcoming Saturday. And I put that stat on there so you know we're still within our range of when we see freezing temperatures, even though we don't see them much in March. March 21st is typically the last freeze for Atlanta. But will we see a freeze after March 21st? So, looking at my long-range forecast data beyond the 7-day forecast, it does look like we'll have another cool spell by the end of the month. So end of March going into the beginning of April, it will certainly cool off again. It's unknown whether or not we'll actually drop to freezing in Atlanta, but our model data suggests that parts of North Georgia will at least drop back into freezing temperatures. So I show you this to say that even beyond this week, we're going to have a nice little warm-up, but we do have more colder weather coming as we head toward the end of the month and the beginning of April. We don't typically see our last freeze in Atlanta, or at least our last cold snap, until Easter. So Easter is a pretty good benchmark for when you can truly get those spring clothes out and put those winter clothes back in the closet. So again, we will see, as I bring that 7-day forecast up full, we will see warmer temperatures through the weekend, but just in case you're curious, by the end of the month, I am forecasting those temperatures to fall again. So that's what you can expect throughout the course of the day. We really hope that you enjoy your St. Patrick's Day. It is chilly, but it will stay dry. First Alert meteorologist Ella Dorsey. She's coming up on Atlanta News First at noon with your latest forecast. Don't forget you can always find your forecast in the First Alert weather app. And later on this afternoon, we have the Georgia First Alert Weather Weekly Show featuring First Alert meteorologist Isaac Williams. What time is that, Maria? It's at now, actually. I thought it was later on this afternoon. So that's what we'll show next with Isaac leading the way there. We hope you guys have an amazing St. Patrick's Day. And until next time, we'll see you soon.
This is your Georgia First Alert Weather Weekly Update.
Welcome into Georgia First Alert Weather Weekly. I am First Alert meteorologist Isaac Williams here in Atlanta, Georgia, and I have with me this afternoon Riley Hale from Augusta, Yolanda Amadeo down in Albany, Georgia, and then Dylan Smith in Savannah, Georgia. Good afternoon, lady and gents. How are we doing today?
Doing well, doing well.
How are you? I'm doing pretty good.
Weather's great.
Yeah, weather's great. Dylan, like you're about ready to go golfing somewhere.
Yeah. I wish I was golfing today. It's one of those that I wish I didn't have to work today, or I would be out on the golf course without a doubt.
Absolutely. Today, again, as of this recording here, it's March 11th, and it is unseasonably warm across the state of Georgia today. I saw some down in South Georgia, Yolanda. There's a chance y'all could see close to 90 later today. Is that right? Close to it.
That is right. Yeah, close, very close to it. Actually, we forecast a high of 88, and our record for this date is 89. Some areas could actually hit 90, especially along and just east of I-75. So definitely unseasonably warm, and these temperatures are running well above our average high of 72.
Yeah, it looks really sunny behind you there. Fair weather clouds and a lot of sunshine. It looks like that all across Georgia. I want to kind of use this as a springboard because next week we're going to be probably all in jackets and coats. We are going to be kind of focusing on some much colder weather coming up for St. Patrick's Day, the day itself next week. But I do want to first start off this with kind of looking back over the past week or so because we've had some big storms across parts of the country, and we're going to see more of that even later on today and tonight. And even Georgia could see some storms too. So first off, I want to play a story just kind of recapping the severe weather over the past couple of days across the central U.S.
It is right there. This is right here, Griffin Road area.
A massive tornado ripping through the Kankakee, Illinois area Tuesday evening.
Everybody, get in, get downstairs if you're out here. Stay safe. And people in their cars are crazy. I'm going downstairs now. Hi, guys.
Part of a widespread outbreak of severe weather tracking across the central U.S. overnight Tuesday into Wednesday. Before that tornado in Kankakee, the same tornadic supercell produced a twister near Pontiac, Illinois. The supercell moved east across towns from central Illinois through northern Indiana.
We have an area that a lot of homes and businesses have been hit. Power lines are down everywhere. Injuries so far have been reported as being minor injuries, but the home damage is pretty significant.
The severe weather also included hail, some of it reportedly more than 5 inches in diameter in Illinois, which could set a new state record. Texas also seeing large hail, some of it reportedly baseball-sized. The Lone Star State also seeing at least one tornado and tens of thousands of power outages. I'm Reed Billion reporting.
So that story just kind of underscores, just the crazy weather that's outside of Georgia. And I want to kind of just talk about that briefly. Earlier in the week, I'll start with you, Riley. There was a moderate risk in Illinois and Indiana, and they get plenty of storms and tornadoes. But in your experience and kind of all of our experiences combined, that was a pretty rare outlook this early in the season, right?
100%, especially that far north, Isaac. This time of year, I mean, we're usually talking about the southeast, kind of seeing the brunt of these severe storms. But I mean, the last week or so, I mean, it's been that part of the country that's really been the bullseye. And even going back to last week in Union City, Michigan, they had an EF3 tornado. I'm sure a lot of people saw that video circulate on social media, but it was so incredible to see the main video that was kind of circulating was of a frozen lake, but then you have an EF3 tornado tearing through that community. Just two things you don't really see happen all too often together, where you have a frozen lake, but severe weather actively happening, and not just severe weather, but pretty violent tornado that did move through up there. So yes, very unusual to see it that far north this time of year.
Yeah, for sure. And thankfully, we've kind of dodged for the most part, severe weather here in Georgia. And I'm actually going to roll that video, I believe, and we can kind of just sit here and kind of talk over it. I will anyway. There's just crazy destruction up in Michigan. This is from that tornado the week before, and to get something that strong, I believe that was the first EF3 in Michigan since the Gaylord tornado back in 2022. And there's that frozen lake that Riley mentioned. Just incredible video. This is something minus the frozen lake and the trees you would expect to see in Kansas or Oklahoma or Nebraska for sure. And again, just some incredible damage. And, unfortunately, they're going to be picking up the destruction for a while. And unfortunately, there was loss of life, despite the fact that there was, warnings from the National Weather Service, even though there's been a little bit of chatter on social media about the Storm Prediction Center's outlook. And yes, they were in that kind of that lower end threat for tornadoes, and obviously was higher back to the west. Dylan, I kind of want to bring you in on this as well, and kind of talk about just the outlooks here that we've been seeing recently, and the storms. It's been really well forecast, but sometimes storms do their own thing.
No, without a doubt. And I know that CPC just did reanalyze a lot of their outlooks, and a lot of those the new updates are very good and offer a lot of really good information. But it's crazy to see that we're already seeing this as we get into the start of March and seeing more and more of these outlooks getting put out. And I think with the newest update that we have with a lot of the outlooks and things of that nature, that you'll start seeing better detailed information that actually might end up being more higher outlooks, just because we can have more of the details with it now as well. So definitely something we're going to be looking at as we head into the next few months, especially since we're already so warm across Georgia.
Yeah, and we'll show this as well. This is a video from Alabama. So this was in Tuscaloosa, outside of Birmingham. That's actually my hometown. This was just from a couple of nights ago, where there was a tornado warning issued for North Tuscaloosa County, and they ended up confirming a tornado in Jefferson County, which is the county that Birmingham is housed in. An EF0 tornado, but this is the same line of storms earlier in the week, guys, that moved into Georgia and actually produced severe weather up in our neck of the woods. We had several thunderstorm warnings, but it looked like by the time it reached South Georgia and in your area, Riley, in the CSRA, and also you down in Albany, Yolanda, did you see any severe weather earlier in the week from that line of storms, or did it weaken before it got there?
It actually weakened right before it entered South Georgia. We actually got the tail end of that cluster of storms coming in with basically rainfall. We had moderate to heavy rainfall, mainly across areas of Sumter, as well as Dooley into Crisp counties, and then further southward. I really didn't expect the rain to reach as far south as the Albany area, portions of Dougherty County, Calhoun County, but we had some sprinkles, and the bulk of that came during the wee hours of the morning, say between 1 to 2 a.m. And then after that, it sort of pushed on out. But we did get some heavy rainfall for our northern counties. But in terms of those severe storms, they actually pushed further eastward, mainly toward Macon and then toward right around heading toward I-75.
Yeah, thankfully y'all dodged it, and thankfully up this way we didn't hear of too terribly much damage out in West Georgia, and even Metro Atlanta saw quite a bit of loud thunder. But thankfully, the storms, by the time they reached the city up here, were generally below severe limits. We're going to take a quick break here on Georgia First Alert Weather Weekly, and we'll be right back here in just a few minutes. All right, welcome back to Georgia First Alert Weather Weekly. And before we move on to kind of a little weather 101 and ask you guys a couple questions that you've been fielding recently, I want to kind of piggyback off on everything that we kind of just talked about. And it's been a little crazy weather. And so, again, this is the outlook for March the 11th and 12th, Wednesday going into Thursday morning. And like recent severe weather events, thankfully, Georgia seems to be missing out on a lot of this. Again, the higher severe weather potential is over Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and then there's no risk of severe weather in Georgia, but it is lessening with eastward extent. And there's a couple of reasons why this is. And one of the obvious reasons here, and in terms of what I'll talk about, and then we'll kind of break it down region by region, is that this particular system coming in during the overnight hours. So obviously, the obvious answer to a lot of this is that the storm is basically kind of running out of energy. Obviously, the air is most unstable when it is during the peak heating hours when it's almost 90 degrees. But when it's overnight, we can still get storms, and we do still expect storms across the state. But thankfully, they're in a weakening state. And we do see that a lot of time in Northwest Georgia where they get a little bit higher threat for severe weather and tornadoes west and northwest of Atlanta because they're a little bit closer to Alabama, which seems to be the magnet of everything here recently. But I'll bring it back to you, Riley, and start and kind of talk about what do you normally see when we talk about severe weather in Georgia? Do things really sometimes do they ramp down over your area or do they seemingly ramp up?
Each situation is a little bit different, Isaac. I've covered tornado outbreaks in our area that have happened between 4 and 6 a.m., but I've also covered them when they've happened in the peak heating of the afternoon. So each setup is a little different, and we always have to look at kind of the four main ingredients for severe weather: moisture, lift, shear, and instability. Instability is tied to that energy you were mentioning. And with this wave that's expected to kind of push through for most of Georgia late tonight into early Thursday, it looks like that could be the limiting factor to a lot of the severe weather that we potentially could have seen if the timing was a little bit different. So, a lot of the questions we get whenever these severe weather events are expected for our area is kind of, oh, what's causing this? Why is this going to be severe? Why is it different from any other day? Well, it goes back to those four ingredients I was just talking about. So we do have a pretty potent cold front that is going to be moving through, and that's going to help drive this line of thunderstorm activity across the state as we head throughout the day on Thursday. But behind that, we are going to see much colder air that will arrive by Friday morning. So that's the big changes that we see this time of year whenever these strong fronts happen. We usually get some really warm temperatures ahead of them. We see the line of storms follow that, and then behind it, we really see our temperatures drop. So even for us here in Augusta today for a Wednesday, I mean, we're expecting to get close to 90 here. We're already up to 87. If we get up to 88, that would tie the record high that was set back in 1990. And I think we got a good shot of at least tying and most likely even breaking it later this afternoon. So we're really thankful that the timing for us here locally kind of pushes it in by early tomorrow morning when that energy is just going to be minimal for a lot of these storms to work with, which just means there's not a lot of the air's much less buoyant, so it can't rise as easily and create that surface-based severe weather.
Riley, great insight there. And Dylan and Yolanda, I'm sure y'all have kind of the same setup sometimes, but also you guys in southern parts of the state, y'all are closer to that buoyancy and moisture that Riley mentioned. So sometimes I feel like that can offset some other things. So in your experience, Dylan, what have you seen in your time in Savannah and how things either ramp up or ramp down there?
Well, like Riley was talking about, number one, it's all about the moisture and the timing of these systems. For the system that we have coming up for us, it's going to be coming through right after it makes it through them. So, not going to look for a lot of energy heading into that time frame of the atmosphere. We're tracking more, maybe a few storms, mostly just scattered rain, though. But it's all about that and how much push some of these fronts have coming through for what we see down here. Because normally we're going to get the return moisture coming back in. If that times up and lines up correctly, especially during some of these afternoons, that's usually when we have some of the worst severe weather in our area. And then also being closer to the coast, we also always have to watch any storm that's rotating, even if it's just off the coast, because water spouts are also a thing down here as well.
Yeah, and Yolanda, you in South and Central Georgia as well. Again, closer to the Gulf, closer to the moisture source, and I feel like you guys may actually be in a slightly better position with this system coming through, obviously, than us here in North Georgia, because it looks like there might be a little bit of an occlusion over Atlanta, and that would push the better moisture and instability closer to you. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. But also, being that all of the ingredients are in place and the moisture, we've got this strong cold front heading our way. It all depends, too, on just how fast that system is moving and whether or not storms really ramp up before they reach our area. Now, if that happens, we will have that potential for some damaging winds, and you can't rule out an isolated brief spin up of a tornado. Often we see that even though the tornado threat may be low, often one does briefly spin up as a line of storms move into the area.
Yeah, well, under great insight there as well. We'll be watching the system, and then of course the next big thing we're watching is the cold that's coming next week, and I want us to talk more about that with St. Patrick's Day. Obviously, a lot of the festivities are probably going on through the weekend. The day itself is during the work week, but it is going to be, I think, catching a lot of people off guard with the cold coming. So we want to kind of talk all about that as a group with the cold coming. That's again coming up after this short break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Georgia First Alert Weekly and Weather Weekly. And I want to talk now, and kind of as we wrap it up for this week's edition, more on the cold that's coming for St. Patrick's Day. And this is not just something that's going to affect North Georgia. This is going to affect almost everybody. If not freezing temperatures as far south as Savannah and Yolanda, it is going to be much colder. So I'll kind of start us off and just talk about the next big thing that's coming, and it's the cold. That's what everybody's kind of talking about, at least on our team here. We have gone ahead and done a First Alert Weather Day just to kind of get people ready for this. This is something that's a huge departure. Again, state near 90 degrees in South Georgia to the 40s for highs, and that doesn't include the fact that it's going to be freezing in the morning. So we've got a high of only 49 degrees. Now here in Atlanta, a quick statistic on St. Patrick's Day itself, the hottest we've been is 86. Coldest we've ever been is 23. So it doesn't look like we're going to break the cold record, and we're not going to break the lowest high temperature record either. Basically what that means is the warmest it got as the daily maximum temperature is 38. So thankfully 49 is better than that, but it's still going to be very cold. The wettest, we're not forecasting any rain at this point. It's been 2.06, and there has been a trace of snow. I believe the year was 1936. So again, looking at sub-freezing temperatures here, highs in the upper 40s on St. Patrick's Day. It's going to be breezy up here, cold all day, and as we look at the actual temperatures themselves, 18 degrees up in Blairsville. That's one of our northeasternmost spots. 24 degrees in Canton. The urban heat island in Atlanta even is going to get to freezing at 32, but it looks like pretty much our entire area is going to be below freezing. Not just for Tuesday morning, but we could actually see this stick around into Wednesday as well. So kind of following the order from last time, we'll start with Riley and kind of talk about what you guys are expecting over in the, what do you call it, the CSRA, right?
CSRA, the Central Savannah River area. So, yeah, we're expecting freezing temperatures early next week, too. I'll kind of show you what we're expecting as far as us here around the Augusta area. So, we potentially could even see the mid-30s early Friday morning this week, but we are anticipating much colder temperatures to arrive with that next front that will push through next Monday. And behind it, we are anticipating our temperatures to get close to freezing by early Tuesday morning for St. Patrick's Day, and then possibly even colder as we head towards Wednesday morning. So what's interesting about this is that we actually have seen our temperatures just so warm recently. It's led to a lot of our trees already coming back to life across the region. So looking at our low temperatures over the past week or so here around Augusta, we've been really in the 50s and 60s, more than 10 degrees above average. So that has led to a lot of things coming back to life. I actually got this drone video earlier this week. This was of our peach trees in bloom. So just across the river, this is about 30 minutes north of Augusta. This is in Trenton, South Carolina, in Edgefield County, right in the heart of peach country for South Carolina. And all our trees are coming back to life. So this is we don't like to see the freezes after this happens. Our farmers are definitely going to be trying to protect their crop really drastically to protect those because these freezing temperatures can definitely be harmful to them. And I think we got a good chance of seeing those freezing temperatures early next week. So not something we like to see after this very warm spell we've had over the last week or so.
Yeah, we kind of got spoiled for sure. And just as a reminder, I mentioned this last week, tax day is always a good safe bet to plant around these parts anyway, at least in the northern half of the state. Dylan, we'll come down to you in Savannah. What are you guys expecting with this St. Patrick's Day freeze or almost freeze for you guys?
For us, it's all about the running of the squares and the big St. Patrick's Day parade here in the city. The entire city comes out for it. For anybody who's going to be coming down from Atlanta, I also can show y'all what we're going to be looking at. And pretty much what we're seeing is similar to what Riley was talking about, not really getting all of that cold air first thing. So running of the squares for us, 30s to 40s, definitely going to need a coat, definitely going to be completely different than what it looked like as we headed into the weekend, but not looking terrible still as we head throughout the day. We're not going to get all of that cold air first thing. We'll still be looking at partly cloudy skies and maybe some mid-50s that afternoon, but also similar to what y'all are also seeing around the area, since we've had a lot of that moisture come back and that heat, our tree pollen is through the roof as well. So anything anybody has going on leading up into the festivities, especially around here in the Coastal Empire, make sure that you're taking that allergy medication.
Thanks, Dylan. And yes, they're all one of our morning anchors used to work in Savannah, and she I believe she's coming down there this weekend to kind of take part in it. I know y'all go big for St. Patrick's Day down there. Yolanda down in Albany, looks like that cold air will also reach you. What are you guys expecting there in South and Central Georgia?
Well, definitely a big change. Of course, this week we've been spoiled. Actually, says last week with our temperatures running mostly mid to upper 80s, so very warm. But we'll have a brief little cool down with Thursday's front following that rainfall. And then temperatures start to rise a bit more for the weekend, low 80s. Early next week, we're back into the 60s for highs on Monday. And once we move into St. Patrick's Day, well, temperatures dipping into the 30s for our morning lows. We haven't had those readings in quite some time. And then even colder Wednesday morning. So definitely a freeze and frost, not something the farmers or even just your gardener wants to see. And on St. Patrick's Day, at least they'll be quiet and dry. Temperatures rather chilly, highs only in the mid-50s. And once we go beyond that, looks like temperatures will start to gradually rebound, but not until the upcoming weekend. Definitely, I would call this possibly the Easter snap. I know a lot of folks want to plant because of the warm weather, but I would say this could possibly be the Easter snap, although still the potential just before Easter, it could dip once again.
Yeah, we all know better than to believe. It's, all the graphics we see on social media about it's like fake spring 2, fake spring part 3, and then like winter's last gasp usually happens around Easter, as Yolanda mentioned. Looking back at just even the previous few years, we know that we can get those cold snaps going in again. I want to just kind of talk about again here up in North Georgia how this is going to be the first of a couple of mornings where we're going to see lows potentially near or below freezing, and as they mentioned too, across all of Georgia, expecting some very cold air. Dylan, another follow-up question for you down in Savannah. Talk a little bit about, I know this happens all the time, but just tell us exactly how much, I guess, that the Atlantic there and the warm waters, relatively warm waters, help you guys out and kind of save you that marine influence, if you will.
So the warm waters down here definitely save us when it comes to a lot of those warmer temperatures. And the best part about it to me personally is I love those days where you get that southern air coming in, middle of January, no humidity, or not looking at much humidity, not looking at much pollen, just gorgeous conditions. And it gives you that break during the winter sometimes, but because we're so close to that too, you get a lot of roller coaster or up and down temperatures, especially as we head into these spring months, just as more and more of those fronts come through. One of the sayings that we do have down here that always makes the weather more interesting is we say this is where cold fronts usually come to die, southeastern Georgia, because they lose a lot of their kick as they get here and they make it very interesting to forecast. But since we do have that influence
winds from the ocean, usually they get pushed out pretty quickly as well. But definitely always make sure you're staying hydrated if you're going to be around the Savannah area going into the warm months.
Absolutely. The Cold Front Cemetery is Savannah, Georgia, right? All right, guys, this has been great. Great banter, great discussion. Riley, Yolanda, and Dylan, thank you so much for joining us from Augusta, Albany, and Savannah. We will do it all again next week with another check of what's coming up next as we kind of move through the month of March, and then spring will be with us soon. Hope you guys have caught up on your sleep from daylight saving over the weekend, and I sure hope you will. We will see you guys next week.
Sounds good. See y'all then.
Thank you. Have a great one.
See ya.